The truth can be a cold revelation, striking like ice when you least expect it to appear. We peel back the layers of deception to show you the world as it really is, without filters. Subscribe today for the most honest stories on the web. The notification light on my phone was blinking when I came out of the shower. I almost ignored it. I had exactly 40 minutes to get dressed, get in my car, and drive out to my brother's lake house before my sister-in-law called to ask why I wasn't there yet. She always called. Always with that warm, slightly worried voice that somehow made me feel like I was already late to my own life. I wrapped a towel around my hair and glanced at the screen. One missed call from a number I didn't recognize, and beneath it, a text from my accountant, Diane. Do not go to the lake house tonight. Do not sign anything. Call me right now. I mean it, Sophie. I stared at it for 3 full seconds. Then my phone buzzed again. My brother Marcus this time. Just checking you're on your way. Dinner's almost ready. Claire made your favorite. Can't wait to see you. I sat down on the edge of my bed, still in my towel, and called Diane back. She picked up on the first ring. Thank God, she said. Are you still home? Yes. What is going on? I need you to listen to me, and I need you not to panic. Her voice had that quality I had only heard once before, when she called to tell me my father had updated his estate documents 2 weeks before he died. Controlled. Professional. Barely holding something much larger underneath. I was doing the final audit on your father's estate transfer. Routine stuff, Sophie. Nothing that should have taken more than an afternoon. But I found a document buried in the secondary filing. A power of attorney reassignment, backdated to 11 months ago. I felt the air go out of the room. What does that mean? It means someone, and I think we both know who, filed paperwork that would give Marcus full legal authority over your share of the estate in the event that you are deemed financially incapacitated, unable to manage your own affairs. I'm not incapacitated. I'm a software engineer. I just closed a contract last month. I know that. You know that. But Sophie, she paused, and I heard her take a breath. There is a notary public scheduled to be at that lake house tonight. I found the appointment confirmation in an email chain that was forwarded to me by mistake. The notary isn't there for dinner. He's there to witness you signing over discretionary control of your inheritance to Marcus. And there is a doctor listed in that same email chain. A Dr. Ellison. I looked him up. He lost his medical license in Ohio 4 years ago for falsifying psychiatric evaluations. The towel fell off my hair and I didn't move to fix it. They're going to say I'm not competent to manage the estate, I said. It wasn't a question. My voice came out very flat and very quiet, and completely unlike me. The email referred to it as a precautionary mental health assessment. Sophie, your father left you 40% of everything. The commercial property on Belmont alone is worth close to $4 million. There's also the warehouses, the investment accounts, the $9 million total, I said. I know what it's worth. I had known since the will reading. Marcus had gone very still when the attorney read my portion. Claire had squeezed his arm under the table. I had thought at the time that they were being supportive, that the stillness meant they were being gracious about a number that surprised everyone, including me. I had been so wrong. How did you get the email? I asked. Marcus CC'd the wrong Diane. There's a Diane Kowalski in their country club directory. I'm Diane Kowalczyk, 1 letter difference. He's been using the wrong contact for 6 weeks. She let that sit for a moment. The entire plan is in my inbox, Sophie. Arrival time, seating arrangement, which wine Claire was going to open for you, and a note that says, and I'm reading this word for word, she responds well to feeling included. Make her feel welcome before the assessment begins. I put the phone on speaker and set it on my nightstand. Then I walked to my closet, took out the dress I had been planning to wear to dinner, and hung it back up. I pulled on jeans and a plain gray sweater instead. I don't know why that felt important. It just did. Some part of me that was still functioning said, don't wear what they chose you to wear. How long have they been planning this? I asked. Based on the email chain, at least 5 months. Since February, right after the estate cleared probate. February. My brother had taken me to brunch in February. He had asked how I was sleeping, whether work was stressful. He had said, very gently, that grief affects people differently and that it was okay to struggle. He had looked at me with such careful, constructed concern that I had actually cried a little. I had thanked him. I had told him I was lucky to have him. I sat back down on the bed and let the full weight of the last several months rearrange itself in my mind. The birthday dinner where I arrived to find everyone already eating, and Claire said I had texted to say I would be an hour late, a text I had never sent. The investment meeting Marcus had scheduled on my behalf with a financial advisor who spent 40 minutes suggesting I was too emotionally raw after my father's death to be making major decisions. The doctor's appointment my sister-in-law had booked for me without asking, framed as a gift, a full wellness checkup, after which the doctor had recommended I follow up with a therapist for what he called signs of grief-related cognitive fog. I had gone to that therapist. I had sat in that office and talked about feeling scattered, forgetful, unable to trust my own memory of events. I had almost believed it. I almost let them build the cage around me without noticing the bars. Diane, I said, I'm going. A Pause. Sophie. Not as the person they invited. I need tonight to end this permanently. If I don't go, they'll try again. Next month, next year, at a different location with a different doctor. I need to be in that room. Another silence. Longer this time. What do you need from me? She asked. I thought for exactly 4 seconds. Everything in that email chain. Forward it all to me right now. And I need the name of a good family law attorney who answers their phone after 7 p.m. The drive to the lake house took 45 minutes. I used the first 10 to make 2 calls, and the remaining 35 to think clearly for what felt like the first time in months. My first call was to a lab. I had driven past it 100 times on the way to my old office, and never once thought I would need it urgently on a Thursday evening. I explained what I needed. The intake coordinator, to her credit, did not ask why. She told me to come in, that they could turn around a full panel in under an hour for a rush fee, and that my results would be digitally time-stamped and certified. I said I would be there in 8 minutes. My second call was to my cousin Natalie. She was 22, quiet, and had been living with Marcus and Claire for the past 3 months after her own apartment fell through. She had her own reasons for staying close to that house, and her own reasons for resenting the people in it, though she had never said so out loud to me. She said yes before I finished explaining what I needed her to do. Her voice shook a little, but it held. I sat in the parking lot of the lab and called my father's estate attorney. He was the one who found me the family law attorney. The family law attorney, whose name was Patricia and who had a voice like gravel and expensive coffee, listened to everything I told her without interrupting once. Then she said, if they use that backdated power of attorney document, they have committed fraud. If the notary signs anything tonight under false pretenses, that's criminal conspiracy. If the unlicensed physician performs any kind of assessment and records findings, that's practicing medicine without a license. You go to that dinner, Sophie. I'll be 15 minutes behind you with the county sheriff. I walked into the lab. I walked out 43 minutes later with a document I folded carefully and placed in the inside pocket of my jacket, directly against my ribs. Comprehensive toxicology screen. Full psychiatric clearance. Time stamped at 7:14 p.m. No substances. No impairment. No cognitive irregularities whatsoever. Fully lucid, fully oriented, fully herself. The lake house was the kind of property that announces itself before you arrive. Long private driveway lined with old pines, exterior lighting that someone had calibrated to make the house glow against the water like a magazine cover. My father had bought it when Marcus was 12 and I was 7. I had learned to swim in that lake. I had believed for a long time that the people inside it were my family. I parked where I always parked, at the far end of the drive near the old boathouse. Before I got out of the car, I sent Natalie one message. I'm here. 3 dots appeared. Then, ready. Then. The man with the briefcase is in the study. Claire put a glass of wine at your seat already. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked calm. Genuinely calm. Not performed calm. Not the fragile, fog-eyed woman they had been carefully constructing for the past 5 months. I looked like someone who had spent the last 2 hours building a case instead of dreading a dinner. I got out of the car. Marcus opened the front door before I reached the porch steps. He was wearing the cable knit sweater he always wore when he was trying to seem casual and warm. He spread his arms wide. There she is, he said, and his smile was so completely convincing that I felt a cold stab of grief underneath all the clarity, because I had loved him. I had actually loved him. And somewhere beneath the calculation, I still did, and that was the worst part of all of this. Sorry I'm a little late, I said. I let him hug me. I counted to 3. I stepped back. The entryway smelled like the rosemary chicken Claire made on occasions she wanted to feel significant. The dining table was set beautifully. 4 places, candles, the good napkins. Claire appeared from the kitchen doorway, and her expression was a masterclass in performed warmth. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was too strong. We're so glad you came, she said. We've been worried about you, haven't we, Marcus? So worried, he said. Right on cue. There was a man already seated at the far end of the table. He stood when I entered, which is not something people do at casual family dinners. He was perhaps 60, with the particular posture of someone who had spent decades being deferred to, and a briefcase that he had placed beside his chair, with the careful precision of someone who needed it to remain within reach. "Sophie, this is Richard. He's an old colleague of Dad's, just in town for the week. We thought it would be nice to have him join us." Richard extended his hand. His grip was firm and measured, and his eyes did what I had been told to expect. They assessed me. Not warmly, clinically. He was cataloging. "Lovely to meet you," he said. "Likewise," I said, and smiled at exactly the right wattage. Warm enough to be plausible, not too steady. And then there was the other man, who appeared from the hallway near the kitchen, introduced as Claire's cousin from out of town. He was wearing a blazer that didn't fit quite right across the shoulders, and he stood slightly too close to the wall, slightly too alert, and his eyes kept going to the front door. "Notary," I thought. "That's the notary." I took my seat. Claire moved to the sideboard, and I watched her pour the wine with her back partially turned to me, the way you pour wine when the wine is the point. I thought of Natalie, of what I had asked her to do 40 minutes ago on the phone while I sat in a lab parking lot. The glass was placed in front of me, deep red, the good label, my favorite. "You must be exhausted," Claire said, sitting across from me. "You've seemed so worn down lately. Marcus and I have been talking, and we just really feel like you need some support. You've been carrying so much since Dad passed." "I've had some hard weeks," I agreed. I looked at the wine glass. The grief is strange. Some days I feel like I can't trust my own head. It was the line they had been building me toward for 5 months. I watched Marcus's shoulders drop half an inch with relief. Claire's fingers unclenched on her napkin. Richard reached down and placed one hand lightly on his briefcase. "That's completely understandable," Richard said. "In fact, it's quite common for people in your situation to feel that way. There are resources available that can help protect you while you're going through something like this. Simple, straightforward arrangements that make sure your assets are handled properly during a difficult period." "That sounds really sensible," I said softly. I let my voice go just slightly unsteady at the edges. I just want someone to take care of things for a while. I'm so tired of trying to manage everything by myself. Marcus leaned. "That's what we're here for," he said. "You don't have to do this alone." I let the silence sit for one moment. Then I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and laid the folded document flat on the table beside my plate. "I know," I said. "I've had a lot of support tonight." No one moved. "That's a toxicology screen and psychiatric clearance from a certified lab." I kept my voice level and pleasant, the way you deliver information in a meeting you have already won. "Timestamp 2 hours ago. No substances. No cognitive impairment. No psychiatric indicators of any kind." I looked at Richard. "Which means any assessment conducted tonight by an individual who lost his medical license in the state of Ohio in 2021 would be not only invalid but criminal." The color left Richard's face in a single visible wave. "How did you Marcus started?" "You sent the planning emails to the wrong Diane," I said. "One letter. That's all it was." Claire pushed back from the table. "This is ridiculous. You're being paranoid. This is exactly what we've been talking about, Marcus. This is..." Diane Kowalczyk has forwarded the complete email chain, including the scheduling confirmation for the notary and the payment receipt to Dr. Ellison, to my family law attorney, Patricia Howe, and to the county sheriff's office. I looked at the man by the wall. "I'm assuming that's you," I said. "The notary. I'd sit back down if I were you." He sat. I turned back to my brother. He was very still now, the way he had been still at the will reading, except this time there was no Claire to squeeze his arm and no performance left to hold. "I found the backdated power of attorney document," I said. 11 months ago, Marcus. You started planning this 11 months ago. Dad had been gone for 3 weeks. Something moved across his face, too fast to name. I chose to believe it was shame, even if it wasn't. "The estate is $9 million, he said, and his voice had gone flat too, stripped of everything performative. "Dad gave you 40%. You were 29 years old. You had never managed anything larger than your salary, and he gave you 40% like you were." "His daughter," I said quietly. "He gave it to me because I'm his daughter." The front door opened. Patricia came in first. She was exactly what she had sounded like on the phone. Efficient, unhurried, the kind of presence that makes a room understand immediately who has authority in it. 2 deputies followed her. And behind them, moving carefully through the doorway in her worn sneakers with her phone clutched in both hands, was Natalie. She crossed the room and stood beside me, and I took her hand without looking away from my brother. "The wine has been sent for independent testing," Patricia said to the room, setting her bag on the sideboard. "We have the original vial that was added to the decanter. Natalie retrieved it intact, and it is currently bagged and labeled." She looked at Richard Ellison. "Sir, you are not a licensed physician in any state. Anything you were planning to certify tonight would constitute fraud. I'd strongly suggest you call your own attorney. This isn't what it looks like, Claire said. Her voice had gone high and unfamiliar. We were trying to help her. She's been struggling. She's been confused. She needed someone to... The emails, I said, describe a seating arrangement designed to isolate me. A wine pour time to occur before the assessment. A transport arrangement, in case I became, and I'm quoting, resistant to the evaluation. That's not help, Claire. That's a trap. She looked at Marcus. He was looking at the table. The deputies moved toward Richard first. He didn't resist. He looked like a man who had known for some time that a situation like this was eventually coming and had simply hoped it would come for someone else. The notary gave his information without being asked. Marcus stood up slowly when Patricia read him the charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Abuse of fiduciary trust. Conspiracy to falsify a legal document. He looked at me once, right before they walked him out, with an expression I will be trying to decode for the rest of my life. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even entirely guilt. It was something more exhausted than either of those things, like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and had finally, with an awful kind of relief, been made to put it down. Claire's voice followed him out the door in pieces. Broken sentences about attorneys, about misunderstandings, about how much they loved me, how this wasn't what it looked like, how she had only ever wanted to protect the family. The door closed. The lake house went quiet except for the sound of the water outside and the candles still burning on the dinner table over a meal no one had touched. Natalie was still holding my hand. She hadn't let go since she walked in. She was 22 years old and had spent 3 months inside that house, watching 2 adults build a blueprint for tonight and saying nothing because she hadn't known who to tell or whether anyone would believe her. You did the right thing, I told her. I was so scared, she said. I know, so was I. Patricia stayed for another hour, walking me through the next steps with the measured precision of someone who had done this before and taken no pleasure in the necessity of it. The backdated power of attorney would be invalidated. The estate would proceed through proper transfer. Richard Ellison would likely face criminal charges in addition to the civil liability. The notary would cooperate with investigators. The wine would be tested, and the results would be added to the case file. She left me with a card and the advice that I should sleep if I could. I sat at the dining table for a long time after she left. Natalie fell asleep on the couch with a blanket I found in the hall closet, and I watched the candles burn down and thought about my father, about what he had believed when he wrote that will, about whether he had known, somewhere in the practical, unsentimental part of him that had built a real estate portfolio from nothing over 40 years, that 40% was not just a number, it was a test. Not of me, of them. I think he knew. I think he left me that inheritance the way you leave a lit candle in a window, not because you expect trouble, but because you want the people you love to be able to find their way home through whatever darkness comes. The trouble was, some of those people turned out to be the dark. I drove home before sunrise. Natalie slept in the passenger seat, with her mouth slightly open and her head tipped against the window, looking younger than 22, looking like the relief that comes after something long and terrible has finally ended. She moved into my spare room the following weekend. We repainted it a color she chose herself, a pale yellow that looks in the morning like the room is full of something warm, and she chose it without asking my permission, and I told her she never had to. The estate transferred 4 months later, clean and legal, and entirely mine. I took Natalie to the closing because she had earned it. She sat in the chair beside me and watched me sign my name on every page, clear-eyed and present and completely herself. And when it was done, Patricia smiled across the table and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. I used to think that loyalty to family was something you owed regardless of what you received in return, that the obligation ran in one direction, from you outward, unconditionally, because the word family meant something sacred enough to override everything else. I don't believe that anymore. Family is not the people who share your blood. It's the people who protect you when protecting you costs them something. It's the 22-year-old girl who stood in her cousin's kitchen and switched a vial of wine because her aunt asked her to be brave for 2 minutes and she was. Everything else is just a dinner invitation with fine print. And I am done reading the fine print by candlelight.